Welcome back, everyone. Today we have another install brought to you by Underground Graphics. I am your installer, Gion. I'll be putting on the Bronco Sport On the Rocks hood kit. Now, this one we have 3 different options. Right now I only have 2 options right here displayed for you, but we do have a hood bump option, and that can go on either sides of your hood. Of course, these 2 that we have on the outside of this middle piece will show you where that hood bump will end up going. This one is a little bit different. It does have different contours, so that way it is not a continuance of this middle piece. But like as I said, this one does give you still the idea of what this one will look like. So we'll just be focusing on this main 3-piece hood for now. As for the third option, we have that up on the website already. And that one is just the hood by itself, the centerpiece. And as similar to this one, it does have a contour on these edges, so that way it doesn't look like it's supposed to continue into a different hood, as well as the pinstripe does go around the side of that. Now that we have the product out of the way, we do want to go over to the tools and materials that you will need for cleaning and prepping. So here we have the usual tape. I've already laid out the tape on here. You can lay it out the same type of way. I find this to be usually easier for the hinge method that we like to use, but that is totally up to you. The more tape that you use, that's fine. The less tape, it might be a little bit more difficult for you to line up certain things. So if you're not sure about anything, always line up everything with tape first and then check everything before you start laying something on. Next, we have scissors and squeegee. Now, we do not provide scissors for you guys, but you do want to make sure that you have a good pair of scissors, and by good pair, I do mean a sharp blade. Next, we do have squeegees that we have on the website for you guys, if that is something that you want to go ahead with. This one is a bit different than the one that we will have on the site for you. This one is just simply red. The one that we have on there is white, with some information about our company on it, as well as a option to buy monkey strips. Now those are just a felt edge that you can put over your squeegee, and it overlaps on both sides of it and protects this edge, which also in turn protects your paint from any type of scuffing or anything like that that you might end up creating with just the bare squeegee. Now, if you do happen to forget to get the monkey strip or the felt strip that we have on the site, that is fine. You can use a microfiber towel, or you can use an old shirt and something that you just wrap around the edge and hold pretty tight onto there, so that way you can still use it the same way it's intended. Other than that, next over we have the heat gun. Now this is what you want to use after your install. You don't want to really need it during the install. This is just to check and make sure that you have all of the vinyl down, the whole graphic is not bubbling anywhere, or there's no free space underneath the contact point and the vinyl. And if you wave over the heat gun over that, then you will see it start to wave a little bit. Of course, you don't want to get too close, and I will give you guys an example of that once we have this already installed. Next, of course, you do want to have a couple of towels. Now that is just one, but the more towels you have, the better. You never want to use an old dirty towel or something that's already been on the floor or anything like that. You want to make sure that they are fresh towels. And just as a side note, we do like to rip off those tags, so that way the tag that's on the towel isn't going to scuff up the paint if you have a dark color. And last but not least, these are 2 of the 4 wrap care products that we have that we are offering here in 2024. We do have a slide slip solution. Now that does act as that soap and water solution that we typically use. Now I do like to use that on the vehicle first, after giving a quick wipe down with the alcohol, just to go at it with the clay bar. So you just spray the soap and water solution, the slip solution, onto the vehicle, give it a quick clay bar, and that's just an exfoliation for the paint, gets any rough contaminants off of it. And then next, back over again with the water and alcohol mix. Again, that is the same type of mix that we have. We're just making it a bit easier for you guys to order it from us. We do have 2 other products also with those wrap care products. We do have a cleaner and we do have a sealant. I'll get to those after we've thrown on the install, and we will get straight to that. All right, now that we have everything taped up, we're going to go ahead and do a quick run through on where I taped everything up, just so that way you guys can get an idea of how to do it yourself. Now, I did put on the middle portion first, and that is going to line up to the edge of that hood. There's going to be a little bit of a void there, nothing too huge. It is like probably about an 1/8 inch of a gap that is going to be at the back of that hood. And you do want to go ahead and place that right there in the middle of where that channel is. Next, you do want to line up the sides of the hood, and same with those. I typically like to put a piece of tape towards the middle of everything, especially if it's an elongated piece. So that way, when I do go and do that hinge method that I had mentioned before, it is super easy. Also, it is a good idea to just have a few different pieces of tape here and there, so that way, and in an even spot, so that way you're not confusing yourself or putting something down before it should go down. Also, as mentioned before, you do want to tape everything up before you lay anything down, because it might be difficult, depending on where you are, to pull that vinyl back up. Also, with adding on to that, you do want to do this in a controlled environment. You don't want to do this when it's too hot or when it's too cold. Generally, you want your interior temperature to be at about 70 to 75 degrees for an install. If it's usually a bit cooler than 75 degrees, or 70 degrees, sorry, then the adhesive may not stick as soon as you'd like for it to. And say you want to go for a drive after you've put on the graphic, it may not stick properly. So you do want to do this in a controlled environment, as well as a enclosed environment. You don't want to have a lot of wind or anything kicking up around your area. It will catch underneath the adhesive, so if there's a install you're attempting to do outside and the wind kicks up and blows some dirt in, it is very, very difficult to try and get dirt out from underneath that adhesive. So we do advise that you guys do this in an enclosed area. And as well as before the install, I do want to go over that this is a mask, protective mask, that is on top of the vinyl. Now that prevents you from hitting it or rubbing it too hard with your squeegee and creating any gloss lines, because this is a matte finish. As well as this one is also covered in a air mask, and it is somewhat conformable. It does stay on until the install is completed. These markings that are in it are part of the mask. They are not in the vinyl themselves. However, when we send them out to you, we will have it look as clean or cleaner than this one over here. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead, get this hood put on, and give you guys what it's going to look like. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, start over here, and with that side of my squeegee, I'm just going to break that tape loose and just get this started here. Of course, you do want to pull slowly just to make sure that everything stays down. And the reason you do want to use quite a bit of tape is that when you break that tape loose, it is going to act as a indicator for where to put your vinyl. Now I like to move my tape that's left over onto the top of the vinyl, so that way I don't forget about it. Same thing here, hinge method, break that tape loose. Pull slow just to make sure you don't pull anything up. Again, we're aiming for that tape marker, and this is air release vinyl, so this is not something that you want to install wet. This is dry only. It's okay if the tape starts to move out of the way a little bit. I know where I'm gonna land. And of course, you do want to make sure that your hands are clean. If you notice, I had my hand right underneath that little corner here. I'm not worried about having anything underneath it. because my hands are clean. Now, when you pull, it might take a little bit of effort trying to get that top mask off, but it will come loose. And when you are pulling that mask off, you do want to pull at 180 degrees. If you pull at a 90 degrees, say this pinstripe might try to come up. It is very difficult to align back where it was. And play it safe, pull at that 180. Okay, now let's go on to the middle of the hood. Now we have the driver's side down. Same method, gonna use my squeegee to break this loose. Same thing, just gonna get this started. Just to where that midline of the tape is. Again, make sure your hands are clean. My hands were all over that backside there. Of course, if you do have two people, that would help, but if not, that is fine. You can let it kind of fold over like this, as long as the adhesive's not touching other adhesive. And just slowly let that roll out. And since you have your tape here in the front still, it won't pivot out of place. So you will be able to hit that mark. And I'm gonna go where I split that paper from and just lock in that edge. Slowly work my way up. And I am using overlapping strokes. So I'm overlapping roughly about 1.5 inches or so every time I'm going over. Same thing on this side. Now it has curved up here just a little bit, that's fine. And that's why you want to do this in a cool area. It's because that may have already tried to lay down if it was too hot. And we're just going to go back over these edges just to make sure those are all down. And then we'll move to the front after we take our tape. Remember, that one already fell off, so I don't have to take that one up. Move those. Now we'll tackle the front of the hood. Now this area might be a little bit awkward because it does have a little bit of a dip here in that body line. So if you guys need to, you can use your squeegee, press against where your tape is, just right on that outside edge of that paper, and pull up. And that will help it break loose. Do that again on this side so you guys can see it. Push right there. You can still see a very thin line of white. That's not the paint, that's the paper. And just give it a quick little pull. If that doesn't work for you, and that seems very iffy, you can get, if you have a retractable blade, and just barely score the tape. You do want to probably get a hard edge here so you can see it very nicely. And you are just going to just slightly score that tape with your knife. I'm not pushing hard at all. I'm going to use the squeegee once again, same way. Of course, you barely heard that release. That is because I split that tape just enough without going down to the paint. And we do recommend, since we have this very thin piece of paper right between here and the graphic, between the paint and the graphic, you can just rest right on that paper. Again, not a lot of pressure at all. Same thing, break that loose. Now we've locked in the top of this already, so we don't have to worry about that moving around. Again, good reason why you don't want dirty hands or a hot environment. Lay this down nice and even so I can get this where my mark is. Again, those overlapping strokes. sure you're being thorough. Make sure you're applying pressure. And then we're going to move our tape to the middle. Still need to do this side. Move that tape one more time. Now we can start pulling from one of these edges. I do like to pull from the windshield down. It just seems a bit easier than trying to pull from the front of the hood towards the windshield. And you do want to kind of get a clean pull going before you start trying to get all of this off at the same time. So I am going to try and get this to line up. There we go. Again, pulling at that 180 degrees. I can stop here. Pull this part forward. Now, since I'm roughly towards the middle of the hood, and in case you have a pinstripe on yours, typically I don't like pulling directly off this way, so since I still have an inch or so left of the mask to go, I do like to pull alongside the stripe, not against it. And that just cuts down on any chance that you might have of accidentally lifting up that stripe. So we have 2 of 3 done. Once again, I am going to start up here. And this is available in other colors. You do not have to get it in matte black and orange. This is what goes really well with our setup on the Bronco, though. And use that tape marker to line back up. Make sure this corner is down. And even though I did pull from the windshield down the last time, you can pull whichever works for you. Again, going at that 180 degrees. A couple bubbles here, but no biggie. This is why we use air release material. Alright, now that we have that off, we are going to go back and heat check this. And then I will show you guys those wrap care products so that way you can protect your install. Okay, now that we have everything installed, we're gonna go back with the heat gun. Now this you do wanna have just warm up for about 10 to 15 seconds. Usually takes about the 10 seconds, but depending on which one you guys have, it might take a little bit longer. You can test it with your hand. Just hold a few inches away. If that starts to feel pretty hot, you should be good. Now you don't wanna get too close to what you're checking. You just wanna be about a few inches away. You can already see we have a few spots there. Got one right here. I'll show you guys that one. Now that is the beauty of this being air release. It does allow you to push out those air pockets. And this is definitely why we don't use wet install, because that is something you would have to let dry for an extended amount of time. Whereas with air release, you can put it on dry, heat check it, and then go on about your day. You don't have to wait for it to dry up. The water doesn't need to evaporate. If you were to heat check a wet install, it could potentially trap that moisture underneath the adhesive, and then that moisture staying under there could potentially kill the adhesive, causing that material to never stick again. So always heat check thoroughly, make sure everything is good and down, so that way you will have a happy install. And as mentioned, last but not least, we do have our Wrap Care products. Now here we have a sealer and a cleaner. The sealer would be great to use right after your install. Just takes a few sprays of a multi-folded towel. And we do say multi-folded towel because you can spray one side, apply, and then flip it over to the other side, make sure it's dried off. That way you don't have any glossy spots and everything is consistent. Of course, with the cleaner, that is something that you want to use every so often. It is not what you would typically use directly after your install, because the material still will be very clean if it is still new. Just as easy as that. That is going to evaporate as we sit here, and this is going to add a little bit of a protection to your graphic from road debris and nature. So that is definitely something we would recommend you guys look into. If you have any questions, of course, on that, please let us know, as well as any graphic that we have on our site. So with our install being on the Bronco and it being on the website, please be sure to check us out. If you have any questions, as mentioned before, let us know. We are here from Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. We do answer phone call and email. Thank you guys again.